Let me see if that fixes it. There's a number of audio issues there. So hopefully everyone got to watch, but we'll just kind of recap really quickly. So Nick just basically built a case, and what we want to convey is that on any different product, you have the ability to go in and click the edit button. So we set up a sample case here with some term 10, some term 20, and term 25. When you go into the edit plan, you'll see you have the ability to mark as sold. So the question was, really around how do you mark a policy as sold, and what are the benefits? And it was really stemming from the monthly report that just kind of illustrates different productivity. So how many cases you created month over month, including things like sales. And again, a lot of people say, well, why doesn't that auto-populate? We will definitely work towards auto-population of sales and things like that. But for now, it's a great way to track, a little bit of productivity. Now, I think the real benefit to marking as sold, though, as Nick was sort of describing there, is really the ability to save the renewals. So we'll just kind of touch base on when you do mark something as sold. So maybe just go back into that, Nick, and click the edit plan. Again, any different product that you present and then sell, you can say save as a policy and mark as sold. Save as a policy saves all of the renewal information or pricing schedule of it. It saves everything to cash values if you're doing a whole life. And it's just going to ask you for the issue date and a policy number. Now, for this one, I had Nick backdate it 2 years because I want to show when you go through in the future how you can use this information. So what we're pretending is that we've been using LDA for the last 2 years. We've marked sample client's policy as sold. Nick kind of went over into the client file. We'll just kind of repeat on that and show that when you do go to the sample client, really everything in life design analysis is tied to the client. So a lot of people get to this by going clients, manage clients from the dashboard and the manage clients area. But many of you may not know, you can also click right here on the client from any design case and jump right into that client file. And this is where you're going to see, what we would call some of that tombstone information, any cases done. But you can see as Nick went in and marked or went into edit plan and marked something as sold, we get a, not only a store of that policy and its information, including all those renewal dates, but it also actually goes into that policy automation. So our software is going to look based on the issue date and the product type. And when there's an opportunity for service, we're going to send you a notification. Now, we had sort of said in this case, one of the benefits to marking as sold is the monthly report, and that's where the questions stem from. How does that information get populated? Well, yes, it does get populated through the edit plan button. The benefit, definitely the notification, and it's really nice to see that you're selling more. To me, the big thing though is, especially with these plans and kind of the way renewal information is saved in the industry, especially if you have to go later to a carrier or try and find, sort of that contract and see, what did I sell? What were those renewal points when it does come up several years down the road? We had sort of said in this scenario, it would be great, when we do save it. So let's pretend here, for an instance, we sold this in 2016. When we do get that notification saying, we need to service sample client here, we can easily spin up a new case and use any of these in-force policies that have been saved. So again, I mentioned that, we were saving a term plan, which is beneficial, but a lot of people will save whole life plans as well and basically use the save plan as the baseline and every single year add a cash value. But I'll just show you, if we say we sold this client 2 years ago, some term 25 or any policy that we have presented. Again, if we really want to get back into it, it's as easy as clicking plus in force, selecting the policy, and importing all of that data that comes along with it. And you can see we faked the issue date here. So again, we pretended that this was 2016, 2 years ago, but you can see, again, I could load it in against any other sort of plan. I'm just going to pick a universal life here. Oh, and I need to go back to the case, and you can see I just need an age. Nick's sample client doesn't have a birth date, so I'm just going to use that age override again. Say 45 or 47, and we'll just do a search for some universal life here. And this makes it easy. Again, one of the classic issues with our industry is that we make it really, really hard for getting all of that kind of information from the carrier. So again, it's very easy. You know, we remember what we pay, but we don't necessarily map out the you know, renewal information as well as we could, or give our advisors access to it from, you know, sort of the carrier level, I'll say. So instead of relying on, you know, a facts of a cost per thousand table with the case of YRT, again, we want to get in the habit of saying Mark has sold. That way, when you need to review it in the future, again, you can always go forward and do it. So now that we've got the audio fixed, I'll just kind of I'll just start saying, you know, we wanted to kick off December. We usually have a little bit of a quieter month, you know, later on if we do the webinar. So we do kind of a Q&A, and we want you to send in your questions. So if you do have specific questions, don't worry if they're basic. I mean, again, it's very good to repeat some of these different steps. Don't be shy. You know, sometimes you say, does the crowd have any questions? And again, you don't really get any response. So hopefully out of, you know, the 70 or so people we have on there, we do have a question in there. So let me know if you have any questions, but yeah, we'll be fielding any sort of questions that you'd have, or any sort of cases that you want illustrated. Okay, so I see another really easy question coming through, and this one's a typical question in the system, and this is how to add a joint client. So Nick, I'll ask you to spin up and just maybe go back to the main dashboard here, and we'll start from scratch. So great question on how to create a joint client in Life Design Analysis. Joint rates were not added at the very beginning, so we always start with one client and then add the second. So a lot of times people try and go and add a new case and add both clients. I'll just show you. If you start with any client, so it could be, you know, client 1 or client 2 out of this joint case, it won't really matter. You can see Nick's pulled up a business owner sample as kind of client 1 in the design case. So just like you normally would, either select an existing client or create one. On the right-hand side where Nick's cursor is, you can see, you know, sort of the details of the client, and there's a big green button that says Add a Joint Client. Now, if you pay attention before he does this, there's there's all of our regular product buttons where we would add and plans to compare. And when you click Add Joint Client, that tells our system that all of a sudden you want to search for joint rates. So again, all we have to do is basically click that button, and we can attach client number 2. So again, same sort of process. If you have an existing client, you would just type their name. If it's a new one, you can see Nick's just gone in ahead, and he's just creating a brand new client. So this could be you know, Mr. Business Owner's spouse, or you know, could be even partner. So again, save any kind of information. We've got client spouse there. We can save it in there. Now, if you were paying attention to those buttons along kind of the left, you can see that they've changed around a little bit. CI is no longer there because we don't have a joint CI product available to search at the moment. So again, the system's kind of automatically adjusted because we've added a joint client. And you can see you can edit if you scroll down a little bit, like just like we were doing with kind of our previous client where we had the age override. You can see you now have options for both clients. So if you had an age nearest in play, you can still adjust both variables for the clients. And same thing with smoker statuses. So that's all tied to that client creation. Now, Nick, if you just, you know, pick a face value and pick any sort of product, I'll just show, you know, that the system sort of adjusts automatically. So it doesn't, you know, you don't always know that, you know, maybe anything has happened, but you can see when you go into survey any sort of quote, we have both clients' ages there, we have both genders, and you can see things like regular health risk on the primary client, and then the joint client health risk. So you can still modify all of those different kind of variables. Yeah, maybe do joint last to die or something like that, but that's how you would set it in there. It's also worth noting for those of you watching for the first time that this kind of functionality, the rate surveying provided through Life Design Analysis, is from Life Guide. And if you are a Life Guide subscriber watching this for the first time, or even a long-term Life Guide subscriber, you probably know that Life Guide subscribers get an exclusive discount onto LDA. And if you want more information about that, definitely ask us. More than happy to help you out. But yeah, phenomenal functionality that, again, just makes it so much easier to bring in all of the different product. But that's how you would do a joint presentation. You can add any different product to that. And, you know, even things like, you know, if you're doing whole life, again, you're bringing in the spreadsheet. So it doesn't, you know, it's not so much about the quote in that, it's already going to be reflected in the spreadsheet. But of course, you can add any sort of product in there that you'd like to compare it to. I do see a question. Are you able to upload your clients from an individual carrier via lists for Excel? Yes, absolutely. This is a great question. So one of the primary features, I think we started for our presentations, but we've really grown on that policy and client management aspect of our program. And of course, getting clients in there is really going to be one of the primary things. Now, Nick, I'll just ask him one step backwards just to go a little bit slower through this, just so we can answer it. The first step, and usually, again, this is one of the first things I recommend, while you're on that free trial, or if you haven't done it in our software already, definitely import your clients. On the dashboard, you can see it's the very right token. You would just click import clients here. We do have a variety of different ways. So, we've got VertGate back offices if your MGA has allowed that. We've got Inforce Pro, which used to be a software company that focused in the space. If you were a customer of theirs, they gave you a spreadsheet, you could bring it in. We have a generic template that's sort of our own version that you can migrate your data to. But I would say the most popular way to bring in data is through this custom spreadsheet import. And this essentially allows you to drop any sort of Excel file in there and match up the headers so that you can bring it in. Now, again, you might also be asking, well, where am I going to get the spreadsheet information from the carriers? Well, that's right below. You can see there is a request clients area where you can get a spreadsheet from any carrier. Now, certain companies are a little bit faster at providing this than others. Certain companies give a little bit more detail. Generally, though, if you have a wholesaler contact, that's the best way to expedite that request. But of course, you can certainly do it through our system. Again, the process would be click the request clients, throw in your advisor code, and hit send. Now, for this example and for this question, I'm going to put Nick on the spot a little bit here. Nick, do you have a sample Excel file that you can upload here?
Let's see if I can find one. Don't believe I do.
Any sort of, even if you just have a sample Excel spreadsheet or something like that, just to demonstrate how we match the header. So even we'll save a Canada Life one to be conceptual here. Actually, I may have one handy for you. So yeah, just export a Canada Life one here and we can use that. We're going to pretend that these headers, and we might actually modify one here. So what I'm going to have Nick do is just export any sort of spreadsheet and save it. And we're going to pretend this is your client list. Maybe on the first one here, yeah, just rename that client name or something like that, just to give an idea. And we're going to pretend that this, this would be a kind of an export from a carrier. That's sufficient for kind of the example we'll give. Basically, what we want to do is we want to go into the imports area of life design analysis. So we're going to assume we've made the request to the carrier. They've sent us the spreadsheet file. Or again, this could be something you've exported from your CRM. Either way, any sort of spreadsheet file will do. We're going to say we want to do the custom importer and say import. And this is where we're going to select our Excel file. So this would, ideally, it would contain all of your client information. We faked it a little bit by adding sort of that, sample presentation of Nick's there. User download. Or just go into select file. Did you save it?
Yeah, I did.
So one of the other things too, I would say, save it somewhere that that you'll remember to get it from. All right. And basically, we would select any sort of any sort of spreadsheet and upload it. So Nick's just going into you can either drag and drop it into the file browser or grab it there. And there we go. So basically I would upload my spreadsheet, say upload, and then you can see basically we're looking for the first name, last name, and you can see it's automatically looked at the spreadsheet that was uploaded. And again, you're going to see, you know, client name, premiums, address. What we're doing is we're just basically matching it. So it doesn't matter what is said in your spreadsheet that you get. You know, it could be called DOB and we're looking for date of birth. We're just basically looking to match those data points. So it doesn't necessarily matter what format it's in. Go through the list once you've uploaded your Excel sheet, and that will bring in all of the policyholders. Now it's worth noting as well, if you do subscribe to our Premier package, this is a service we do as a one-time setup, and that will bring in all of your clients you know, right off the bat. And again, if you think about that, you know, if you bring in all of your clients and as you use LDA to compare different products and use that mark as sold, there's really no need in the future to ever do an import again, because as you start marking things as sold, it's going to be saving those policies, the renewal dates, the product type, and even the premiums, so that in the future you don't have to request them from the carriers. So great question there. I do see is another question here. So is it possible to import existing policies from the insurers, or must it be done manually? So, you know, that's a pretty appropriate segue. Most of the time it must be done manually. So even when you do request your clients from the carriers, they send you the initial premium. Not many carriers have access to the renewal data. In fact, most of them will tell you that, you know, if you say, look, I'd like a listing of all my clients with, you know, their current premium and all their renewals, they'll tell you it's simply not possible. They say it's exported at the time that the policy comes up for renewal. I don't know if I quite buy that, but the fact remains it becomes very difficult information to come by. Again, that's why saving the information on file makes your life so much easier in the future. If you use LDA regularly, use that mark as sold, you are going to be able to automatically import existing policies. But it's a good opportunity to show how you would enter in a policy manually, because that is truly the best way to get it in there for the first time. So let's do that. Let's spin up a new case here and just show really quickly how I would add an existing policy. So again, we'll say we've created a client already. We'll go into our sample client and we'll say create. And again, if we had something in force, we could always certainly import it, and if we've saved it from LDA. But let's say, for instance, we've got, kind of the carrier gives us, the premium information. Maybe they just send us a copy of the, kind of the second page of the contract and say, here's the guaranteed renewal schedule. Well, we're going to want to use the manual area here. So we're going to say manual, and we can, in this scenario, we can pretend it's a term 10. So Nick's going to select term 10. I recommend renaming this, make it unique to your client. So something that they're going to understand. Remember, this updates the legend items and all that. So again, if it's existing Canada Life term 10, your existing term 10 plan, anything that kind of enhances that description for them is very valuable. Next, you're going to want to enter that initial premium in there that you got from the carrier if they faxed you over, or emailed you over that second page of the contract. So we'll just say simplistically, this is our client's a 50-year-old, so we'll just say it's $1,600 for the, that would be about $1 million a term, and then any subsequent renewal. So it probably goes up about 9 times. So it'll go to about, probably let's say 7,500 or something like that. We would actually enter the exact contract details here. Now you'll see LDA, as Nick keeps entering these renewals in there, you can see it's always going to give you the opportunity for a next renewal. Doesn't mean there is one. It really depends on the client's age when they purchased it, how many renewal points there are going to be. If our client is 50, this would take them to 60, 70, 80, and 85. So that's good. You can also set the renewable age and convertible age. And again, give it an issue date. Now we use all of this information in the report. The issue date tells us how far from the original policy this is, so we know how many years till the next renewal. The renewable to age tells us how long to calculate it out to, and we put a little green X for the convertible age, and again, policy number. Now again, if you don't want to enter this kind of information in again, once you've manually entered it, that's when again you want to save as a policy. In this case, because we haven't just sold it, we don't want to credit our monthly stats, so we're not going to mark as sold. And that's a good tie-in to kind of our previous lesson that we did showing how to save a policy, how to save one and mark it as sold. And let's go ahead and save. Now, with any policy, again, you can always go back in and edit that policy and update the details, but that would be a great way to get that in there. So great question. So thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to go through some of the different questions. I'm seeing a couple really easy ones. So I see approximately how many products or percentage of products are available on the software compared to all products on the market. Really, again, through the Life Guide integration, I think we cover the majority of the market through spreadsheet imports. I would say we cover even some different carriers that, say Life Guide wouldn't, let's say a Canada Life, Whole Life, or Manulife through that import process where you can still illustrate it. And then we also have a manual area. Now, Nick just demonstrated a manual term product, but remember there also is a manual kind of open-ended spreadsheet. Now, we used to call this generic. We now separate it out into Overfunded UL or Whole Life just because it makes it easier for a first-time user to sort of identify with those titles. But I like to think of the Whole Life or Overfunded UL in the manual area as a open-ended input. So you can see if Nick goes to add one of these plans, it doesn't matter which one, because generally in this kind of strategy, we're changing the name from Overfunded UL. And again, you might as well just change that to anything you can think of. So just put anything. So again, you can change the name. Yeah, it could be a seg fund, could be an annuity, could be even a term plan can be entered here if you want to, maybe show kind of a staggered benefit or something like that. So really anything at all you can think of. Basically, the main ability of this, and I say that you could get almost anything, any kind of data in here that has some kind of price, some kind of cash value, some kind of benefit, is because in the paste spreadsheet data, when Nick hits that button, we're going to see that we can actually self-populate those. So great question. But I usually, when people say, what can it compare? I usually say, you name it, we can compare it. And I see, can you filter for credit card payment annually, monthly? Not now. You can definitely filter annually, monthly. By credit card payment, I mean you're probably talking about something that would be like a carrier that would take credit card payment. I think there's a few that are starting to go that way. And then I see a couple more. Can you show how to manually input a policy information from a specific whole life? So with this ART term one, actually, Nick, we've got another question on how to use this manual spreadsheet. Let's just pretend, and I think you have a Canada Life quote even up there. Let's just pretend, this is our quote here. And even you can take it back one step, even out of Excel, you can maybe go from the preview. So to just show, really anywhere you have kind of data, whether it be Excel, whether it's, a Canada Life spreadsheet, highlight the information. So I'll just grab that annual premium here. So we'll just say that 20 years. Nick is doing a Control C or a copy or write. For some reason inside the carrier software you can only use the shortcuts. Inside Excel you can use a right click, of course, and then we're just going to paste it in there. So again, we'll paste that. Let's say for instance, in this plan we definitely do have cash value, so we can paste it in there. If you had no cash value, you would just put 0. And then again, same thing for insurance benefit, you would just paste it in there. So, while this is whole life, even if we don't have that custom company in there, like I've had a couple questions about Assumption Life recently. So we're looking at trying to get their spreadsheet in the system. But essentially, if it's not there right now, this is a great workaround. Let us know though if there's not a spreadsheet, if you use one frequently. Because we're happy to update those. We just go by user request. If it's a popular one out there and the carrier has it, we can add it in there. So that's a great question. And I do see one about whole life. Can we do whole life? Yes, certainly any sort of whole life. So this one, you can enter it manually. You can also drop the whole spreadsheet. And I don't know, we can show that. I don't know if anyone wants to see that sort of one of more of the basic functions. All right. And again, you can see Nick, once he completes all of those different fields, you can see it uploads and again, is reflected on that case. And again, this time we might want to change that name to Canada Life Par or whatever. But again, you can see you can manually enter really any sort of structured data. And again, I have seen that used in a variety of things. I've even seen a couple clients from the United States do indexed ULs in there. So really sort of any kind of input, but that would be if you find something outside the box. All right, so I'm just looking through the questions, and I do see a question about just account customization. So how do I add a logo? This is another really basic one that's very easy to do, but again, something that's very important in the system and makes a lot of impact to your reports. Nick's just up where it says welcome in his name, and he's going into the account settings there. And this is where, you know, there's kind of 3 tabs along the top that we talk about. So first tab that we're looking at that it automatically defaults to is our cases tab. So any sort of report, you know, if you're doing things like your logo, you can see is top right there. We can select the logo file, color scheme. We can select a color scheme in different templates. So anything in here is going to impact the look and feel of the report when you hit generate report. So as you scroll down, even things like the disclaimer, you know, mission statement, some chart details. So if you want to, you know, see, you know, term year or client age along the bottom side there, you can customize those. So a lot of people like client age because, you know, they can go and say, hey, look, when you're 65 along that kind of the bottom axis of the charts, and kind of look and say, you know, this is the value of the product. Again, you can also do things like control your default report components. So I don't know how many of you guys have gone in there and played with this, but you know, you don't necessarily have to use every single report component. Sometimes you're going to want a simpler report. Sometimes you might have preference to a table over a chart. IRR is probably the best example where I find users are either 100% on one side of the fence or 100% on the other, and it really depends on your audience. But if ever you find yourself adjusting these metrics on a per case basis, remember you can always set your default so that it's going to remember, you know, sort of your preferences. So a good example is, you know, if you don't like that chart per cost per thousand chart, and you don't want it in every case, just leave it unchecked from your preferred set. So again, I find these are very individual, but don't feel like you have to go with our settings. Now, Nick, if you scroll up to the top again, you can see I kind of, that's where we went through the logo. Maybe you can just brand your logo just for a quick second with, you know, any other sort of logo. So maybe go to Google and download their logo or something like that, and we'll just show, you know, maybe if we can grab their logo. So we're just going to save our image. So we're going to take Google's logo here, and we're just going to save it somewhere where we're going to remember. So again, think about this as your company logo, and Nick's just got it kind of on the desktop there, company logo. So this would be your logo for your firm. Again, grab it there. We're going to say choose file. And again, we just want to grab from the desktop the company logo. So wherever you have it saved on your computer, when you hit choose file, it's going to upload it. Now you're not quite done. You can see the file name has updated there to company logo. There's just one more step. We just want to go right down to the bottom and save those changes. Now, if we go back to, let's say, our last report after that, you know, the little spinning wheel in the bottom right finishes uploading it, you're going to notice that all of the reports that we create and all the historical reports are going to have this branding on them. So as soon as you set your logo in there, all of those reports are going to take that logo. And you can see we've got a successful message. You can see even on the preview there, the report settings, the logo has been updated. And if Nick generates a report here, we're going to be able to see that this is a Google report. Something that would be pretty scary in the insurance world. But again, remember, that's another great account setup tip. So on top of, you know, when you first get into the account, take a little bit of time in the account settings, set up your cases. It's a good, you know, maybe a good opportunity as well to go through some of the other ones. So cases, that's really the look and feel of the output. System is more of your preferences. So this includes things like those daily notifications. So when you have a notification in the system, if it's unread, it will remind you every day at 7 a.m. It will, well, 7 a.m. where our server is set, so Eastern time, it will email out if you have any unread notifications. And that's just to remind you, you know, if clients have visited your cases, or, you know, if there's a client birthday, we do try, and I did see a question about client birthdays, we try and notify you a day before. I will say that, you know, we've had different feedback. Can you notify us a month before? Can you notify us 2 days before. So everyone's sort of preference is a little bit different there. We do it and we try and notify you kind of the day before, so you have a little bit of lead time, but definitely check based on your time zone when you do get the notification. But again, you can see, you can change the frequency of your notifications. So, you know, I have mine set to daily. I don't mind getting that email in the morning, but on the other hand, I'm also in life design analysis on a daily basis. So, you know, I'm probably going to see a notification. And if you're the type of user who uses it daily, then you might not need a reminder because you're going to be in there every day. Whereas someone who doesn't log in quite as frequently might really, really appreciate that daily or weekly reminder. So you can change things like that. You can also see, you know, the example of the birthday reminders. If you don't like our birthday reminders, you can also turn them off. So you can see Nick has birthday reminders turned off, but he does have things like client case visits turned off and conversion opportunities, so some of that policy automation. Lower to that, you can see the case opportunities. And again, these are really based around those triggers. You know, when a term conversion comes up, and we classify a term conversion opportunity in years 7 to 10. So, you know, thinking about that example we marked as sold earlier, it had a specific policy date and a specific policy type. When that hits its trigger, so a term 10 in the 7th year on the issue date, 8th year, 9th year, and 3 months to the issue date, we will run whatever recipe you have listed there. So you can see Nick has his set that when a term 10 hits its 7th, 8th, or 9th year, it automatically runs a replacement T10, an upsell to a T20, and a minimum funded UL out of his preferred companies. So again, great automation piece. It gives you something, you know, you can immediately take to the client. If you want to further customize it, of course you can. You can always add a whole life spreadsheet, delete certain plans, but again, at least gives you something without doing too much work and keeps you on top of that block of business through the notification. And again, you can see there's other recipes for different opportunities, and even, you know, policy statuses. So, you know, we don't run policy statuses on, let's say, lapse policies, but you may still want to keep them inside of your, you know, kind of block of business. You can decide what sort of statuses get notifications and get that automation. And if you don't have a status on a policy, our default is to automatically run it just in case. So you should find that works pretty seamlessly no matter what. And can be customizable, but definitely do take a peek in there. And I guess the last tab to touch on, just while we're in the account settings here, would just be the Life Guide tab. I mean, you do see a Dropbox tab in Nix, but we never actually use that on the production end. And Life Guide, again, I will mention it if you just tuned in late. Life Guide feeds us those wonderful rates that are inside the system. And again, through the partnership, we do give a discount to Life Guide subscribers. So feel free to get in touch if you want to take advantage of that. I think a lot of you know about that discount or are taking advantage of it as well. So that's a great one to have. Again, though, you can set your preferences in here. I think the biggest one is things like provinces, some of the filters. One of the things, though, on the, you know, you can see Nick has filter out non-convertible and non-renewable. This might be one that you want to take a look at. I've noticed a kind of a trend in the industry with some of the term products, like some of the term 30s that don't renew. They won't show up in the survey because they're technically not renewable if you have this setting on. So you may not want to filter out certain products. You may want to just show all products. Again, that's a setting inside of your Life Guide tab. So again, things like results. Same thing with monthly or annually payments. I find, you know, people are either on one side of the fence or the other. If you're doing most of your presentations and you present monthly and sell monthly to your clients, just make sure you change that default over. It's going to save you time switching it every time you do a survey. So you can really sort of customize you know, things to your preferences, including things like your preferred companies underneath there. So you can see even lower, we've got some preferred companies. Oh, and we've even got a live chat, so they don't know we're doing a webinar right now. Now, that noise you heard is our live chat on our team. If you do have questions past the webinar and you're using the system or you want a refresher on any of the concepts, Nick can also show you, you know, how you can actually ask us a question on the live chat itself. So you can see he's popping it out there. He's going to say, you know, help guys. And you can hear that noise comes through to all of our team. It comes to our cell phones. It wakes us up in the middle of the night, and we try and get to them as soon as possible. So if you ever do have a question as you're going through these, don't hesitate to reach out on them. Now, I know we're coming up sort of to the end of the webinar, so I do want to check and see if there's any more questions come through here. Let me just see here. I do see a question just about regular PAR product. Can you upload a regular PAR product? This would be a good opportunity to actually just import that Canada Life. I know we covered it manually, but I want those first-time watchers to be able to just really see how to do it, and then we'll move into kind of a neat advanced feature, and we'll give you a little preview of the things that we're working on for the year ahead. So Nick's going to take it away for the import there, and we'll go from there.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go back and take a few steps back to the case we're working on. Now, if we're adding a whole life policy directly from the carrier software, we're going to need kind of 3 major steps. One's going to be obviously go to whole life in your LDA case, select that option, and we're going to pick from the list the carrier that we're working with. In this case, I'm just going to use Canada Life for demonstration's sake. What that does is it adds in a blank template that is hard-coded with some specific information that recognizes specifically Canada Life spreadsheet data. So if you made a mistake and say you tried to bring in a Manulife spreadsheet into this template, it would actually give you an error and let you know you can't import Manulife data into Canada Life. So in this case, we're going to go back to Canada Life, grab that illustration, and pop it into LDA. So in my case, I run Parallels because I have a Mac computer, but I use obviously the insurance Windows applications to run all of this information. So once we've selected the type of policy that we're working with, we've grabbed all the information and then gone ahead and compiled all of it, we're just going to go ahead and go to view data.
And you just want to make sure you've closed out all your other spreadsheets too.
And so once you're in this kind of internal spreadsheet, we then need to go to export to Excel. This basically just allows us to actually access all the headers. When you try to copy information from the internal spreadsheet in Canada Life, it actually won't allow you to grab them. So in this case, we can either save the file or we can actually do one step less and just simply select the entire sheet. And so that's done by clicking the little triangle in between column A and row 1. Then simply right click copy. Now we're going to go back to LDA. We'll then go to your Canada Life policy and we're going to click paste spreadsheet data. The last step here is simply just to right click to paste there in the text box. And that does look super disorganized, but as soon as we hit upload, it's going to reorganize that information for us. So once this loads, you'll get a notification that we've imported successfully and we're good to go.
Perfect. And just one step, I mean, I'll just talk a little bit, just when we say headers, what we mean is we read the tops here. So it doesn't matter what order they're in. We grab the information, even when it's jumbled out there, we know exactly what to look for in the spreadsheet, and that's how we bring it back in. So, it makes it really, really easy. And do keep in mind, anything you customize in terms of your product design. So things like additional deposits, term riders, all of that gets reflected into the spreadsheet and pushes us those values. We use them for things like grabbing the adjusted cost basis when we're doing things like a credit to the CDA comparison. There's a lot of advanced functionality we get out of the spreadsheet. So, while it's a pain in one sense that we have to do that, unfortunately, we're working towards eliminating that. On the other hand, it's got a wealth of information in it, so it's it's really quite good. Now, the last thing that I see a question before, sort of I go on to, talking a little bit about what is in the future is just a question around pricing. So Nick, maybe you can take us through some pricing and show us, what the different plans kind of entail, and maybe speak a little bit about, the different types of users who gravitate to different product offerings.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Yeah, so I mean, if you did want to go back and reference this on the homepage of Design Analysis, you can go to just the sign up free page, and it gives a quick breakdown of the information that we're looking at here. So for example, we offer 3 different subscriptions for LDA. If we go here, we've got our Pro, Elite, and Premier. What we've been showing you today is going to be our Premier subscription. So that is kind of our fully featured top of the line option, and really offers a lot of value add when you look at the price differences. However, there are going to be specific people who may gravitate towards Elite or Pro specific to their uses. So Premier is really great for those who are either producing a lot of insurance and need something in the background to help automate some of their workflow, but it's also great for those who are kind of in the early years of their advisory business and they're looking to actually accelerate that growth and have something to help them take over some of the more menial tasks as opposed to just slaving over Excel sheets all the time. Now with Elite and Pro, definitely some great options. As far as pricing goes between the three of them, when we're looking at a pure monthly basis, respectively, they're priced at Premier at $108 per month. Elite is going to be $84 per month, and then Pro is $60 per month.
And we price our products very much like insurance products by committing to the year. When we do things like the account setup, we invest in you, we invest a lot in training. So it's nice when we get that commitment back and we know we have a full year working with you. With monthly, you can cancel at any time, but there is sort of an additional cost that goes with that. Again, I would say most of our subscribers, I think it's something like, I should know this intimately, but I think it's about 80% of people gravitate towards the Premier plan. And a lot of it, I think, is really due to that interactive case share. I think that I would call as sort of anchor technology, where it is very powerful, where you can share a link to your client and have them interact with it. And I think that's actually a good segue into, sort of what we are working on going forward. So with the coming year, you will see we like to release kind of our new feature set in January. So you are going to see some customization. One of the things I think we're most proud about is our groups model that we're working towards. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a preview of groups in the last 10 minutes of the webinar. And again, this is focused, if you think about yourself in terms of the industry, there's lots of different groups out there. So you may be an individual producer and your group may be your wholesaler. You may be a producer with an administrative assistant, and that is your core group. But you want to be able to more seamlessly transfer cases. Same thing, you may have a small AGA and a group where you have yourself as kind of the main producer with the main advisor code, but you have several junior advisors working that block under you. And you may want to, again, have everyone have their licenses, everyone be able to present under their own name, but share and work that one block of business. Well, we've heard this feedback from a lot of different groups out there. And what we've tried to create is a group model that should make it a little bit easier to work, with all the different work groups in life design analysis. So I'm just going to share my screen here, and to illustrate this, and again, I hope the audio is still going off Nick's because we have it on his computer, but just to illustrate this, I've set up a couple things here. So in this dark window, you can see I've got welcome and my name, and you can see in Nick's window here, I've got welcome and his name. So I'm actually logged into two separate accounts, kind of simultaneously. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to make his a little smaller there. Now, as of January, you're going to see our new functionality that is up under your name is going to say welcome, and you're going to see a My Groups area to go along with the My Account area. Now, when I pop into my groups here, you can see I can filter by ones that I'm the owner in. I can design different groups for different things. You can see I'm going to go into my LDA test group here. Now again, I can give, I can edit my group and give it any kind of information I want. So this is my, let's just say this is my small AGA. And again, I can say to auto approve members. So I can set certain things like the name of it. I can invite all of my team members onto the platform by sending them an email. And you can see my group here is comprised of myself as the owner. I've got John set as my BDM. Nick's my insurance advisor, and I've got Melissa as my admin, and you can see I've got my secondary account as a insurance advisor. So you can kind of structure these groups with different permissions in terms of visibility, in terms of what notifications they get, or even in terms of what clients are shared. So again, you can see I've shared a couple clients with this group. Again, I might say I want to share a new client. So let's just say I'm the main producer here and I want Nick to work on, I've got a really good lead for him from one of the clients in my block of business, or I just got that notification that he's got a term opportunity. So what I do is I can say, okay, I want to share a client, and I start typing the name. So I'm just going to call this my zebra test. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to share this client with Nick, and again, you can see all of the members in my group are now going to have access to Zebra Test. Now, you can see if I minimize this here and go over to Nick's account, I can go in and I can manage my clients, and you'll be able to see, I'll just reset my filters here. I'll be able to see any sort of groups that I'm a part of. So again, I can see I've got my small AGA, and I can see Zebra Test, that client I just created. I can now go in and view that client, and I can change anything about it and create cases. So, when you think about kind of the industry and sharing, whether it's help on a case with a wholesaler who's using LDA, or one administrative person in your office who's an expert at LDA, and everyone wants their own presented by license, but wants that one maybe paraplanner type role to create cases and work and share that. We've really listened to that sort of feedback, and again, we wanted to allow all of that information to flow more easily with the people that you work with. So again, for those of you working in offices with groups, it should be that much easier to work with your different groups and carriers. And again, we have a lot of carriers who have been actively trying to participate in this model as well. So we'll have some exciting news about some of their in-force policies that are going to get trickled down to you guys. So again, keep your eyes peeled for that. You can see Nick has this nice brand new notification too that's saying Charlie has shared this client with your group. So in the new year, again, a really big focus on being able to collaborate, being able to work a little bit easier and just find that opportunity more easily as well. And that really brings us to kind of the last 5 minutes of the webinar here. So I'll open it up and see if there are any more questions, and hopefully we got everything, and hopefully that was a valuable refresher. All right, so I see a lot of thank yous. Thank you guys for participating. January will again resume sort of our regular webinar schedule. We're always looking for guest participants. So if you want to participate in the webinar, if you have any ideas for topics, anything at all, feel free to send us a message. You can reach out to us at info@lifedesignanalysis.com. You can do it through the live chat. You can shoot any one of us an email. And as usual, we record all of our webinars, so you will be able to find it on YouTube as well as in our help center. And I really would encourage as well, do go check out our help center. We have a really robust blog that's in there. We've added some great articles, and feel free to share them with your colleagues and friends. And hopefully in the new year you'll be able to add them to your groups and your peer circles and more easily share cases and clients. So that brings us basically to the end of the webinar. I'll leave it open just in case there's a couple last questions. But other than that, have a great rest of your week. And again, hopefully we'll talk to you and see you in the new year on future webinars. So thanks again for participating.